of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa.
I'm supposed to feel sorry for that bitch. I don't.
I said, what? She said, yeah.
All of a sudden, I heard a big boom.
I dropped my hot pocket.
And I flashed him and...
I sound like a try. I said, what in the world is that?
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and another video of looking at the facts. Today we're in South Africa looking at President Cyril Ramaphosa and some interesting speeches and stuff he gave this past week. So the past week the UN had their 76th General Assembly sitting, and Cyril Ramaphosa gave a speech mainly about COVID, I would say. He was not there, it was a pre-recorded message. But listening to this message was just interesting to see how disconnected the party that Cyril Ramaphosa is the head of, which is the ANC, is actually disconnected from South Africa and the rest of the world. The image he's taking out there and telling the world and what's actually happening in South Africa. It's interesting to see how he puts his spin on COVID and the vaccine deal, where he actually tells the world and the richer nations that they took the vaccines out of the hands of the African countries. So let's quickly listen to that part of the video.
Mr. President, Secretary General, Excellencies, it's my honor and privilege to introduce the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa.
The worst global health emergency in over a century. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused great devastation around the world. Millions of lives have been lost and livelihoods have been destroyed. It has shaken our sense of well-being and security, that vaccines are the greatest defense that humanity has against the ravages of this pandemic. It is therefore a great concern that the global community has not sustained the principles of solidarity and cooperation in securing equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines. It is an indictment on humanity that more than 82% of the world's vaccine doses have been acquired by wealthy countries, while less than 1% has gone to low-income countries. Unless we address this as a matter of urgency, the pandemic will last much longer and new mutations of the virus will emerge and spread.
So he claims 82% of vaccines were taken by a rich company or rich countries around the world, and the rest was left for Africa, I guess. What he fails to mention is that especially South Africa could not pay for their first batch of vaccines that was acquired, and they missed their first deadline to make payment on that. But he fails to mention that part on the government side, but yet blames other countries that went ahead and ordered and paid their vaccines well in advance. It's strange, Mr. Ramaphosa. Maybe you should take some responsibility for that. I can't speak, or you can't speak for other African countries, but you can surely speak for South Africa. It's sad that you blame the richer countries because they made payment in time, but you failed to do that. Mr. Ramaphosa says that unless they address this huge problem that Africa did not get any vaccines, and less than 1% went to the poorer countries, COVID will basically not be stopped in African countries. Now, I find that strange and actually sad, where Mr. Ramaphosa went to the world at the UN on their stage and made all these accusations and pointed out how the rest of the world, it's their fault that Africa is behind. But in the same week that the speech was, on the 23rd of September 2021, interesting, in less than a week, in 4 days' time, the ANC launched their manifesto for their election campaign for 2021, and there was no social distancing at all at this event. Neither were regulations followed during this event. Mr. Ramaphosa, I will point you to a speech that you gave on the 12th of September 2021, where you moved South Africa from lockdown regulations level 3 down to level 2, and where you specifically gave the regulations for what is allowed and what is not during this specific period.
The Ministerial Advisory Committee on COVID-19 has recommended an easing of restrictions on the movement of people and also gatherings. These recommendations have been discussed at the National Coronavirus Command Council. They've also been discussed with our premiers, our mayors, with leaders of political parties represented in Parliament, and with faith-based organizations.
Mr. Ramaphosa clearly states that these regulations were discussed with political parties and churches and all of the above, basically, and they all said that's good, the regulations is acceptable, and the country can be moved to level 2. Let's listen further.
It has decided that the country should be moved from adjusted level 3 and be placed on adjusted level 2 with effect from tomorrow. It also means that all gatherings will now be limited to a maximum of 250 people indoors. And this has been raised from the 50 people indoors, and it will now mean that outdoors it will be limited to 500 people from the 100 that we had.
So the new regulations is for indoor and outdoor. I want to focus on the outdoor, which was moved up to 500 people per event that is allowable according to the new regulations set by the ANC and their government for South Africa.
Several important measures in relation to how we regulate COVID-19 remain in place. It remains mandatory for every person in our country to wear a mask that always covers their nose and mouth when in public spaces. It is a criminal offense not to do so, and the managers of shops and restaurants, as well as drivers of taxis and buses, have a responsibility to ensure that their customers wear masks and that the appropriate social distancing measures are in place.
I also want to point this out. He specifically states it's still mandatory according to law to wear a mask in public. So anywhere in South Africa, when you are in public, you have to wear a mask. He also points to the fact that managers of restaurants, company owners, basically the managers and heads of a organization will be held responsible if these regulations are not followed for buses, open events, anything like that. The organizers will be held responsible if regulations are not followed. So at this point, I think it's important to go watch and see in 4 days' time after the UN speech he gave and blamed the whole world for the current COVID situation in Africa and specifically South Africa. Let's see what happened at the ANC's Manifesto launch for their 2021 election campaign. It's clearly visible that there are more than 500 people at this event. Personally, I would call this a super spreader event because there's no social distancing happening. There's clearly more than 500 people at this event. So, Mr. President, I would like to understand, how is it that the rest of South Africa is literally struggling to survive? Businesses are closing, events companies are closing down because they are limited to the amount of people they can host. Yet the ANC is allowed to host thousands of people. It's not clear in all these shots how many people there actually is, because it's a camera just on one angle. But how is it that the ANC can do what they want and the rest of the country have to struggle and try to work around all these regulations set by your party, the ANC? It is ridiculous. It's also reported in January, it was, that over 7,000 people were arrested for not wearing masks in public space. More than 20,000 people were arrested in December, starting January, for not listening or adhering to these restrictions and regulations that was set out. So why was nobody arrested at this event that the ANC held? Clearly there are more than 500 people, so why is the organizers not held responsible and being arrested and fined? Is it just going to be do whatever you want because you're the ANC and the rest of the country just have to listen to you and you can do what you want? That's unacceptable. Then further, we have to ask, where is the police minister, Mr. Bheki Cele? Is he missing in action? He was quickly to run and arrest people and be on the news for people that's going against the regulations and not adhering to them. Yet, nobody has heard from him. The day prior to the ANC's Manifesto launch, the EFF also had their Manifesto launch for the 2021 election campaign. Clearly, if you look at these videos, you'll see there are thousands of people at the EFF event. How can that be, Mr. President? Are you going to allow that? Is the IAC going to allow that for all these irregular events taking place where other parties are not allowed to have such events? However, the EFF can do whatever they want, and the ANC as well. Where's Mr. Bheki Cele at the EFF event? Why is nobody arrested? Have a look at these pictures and you'll see there's hardly any masks being worn. Now remember, about 2 weeks ago, Mr. President said that wearing masks is mandatory when you are in public space. It is against the law not to wear a mask. 7,000 people were arrested in January, December for not wearing a mask. Yet this event went ahead with more than 1,000 of people attending. Most of them did not wear masks. Why were they not arrested? Why were these people arranging these events, basically Julius Malema and yourself, Mr. President, why are you guys not being held responsible for these people not wearing masks during your events? That's unacceptable. It's unacceptable that the rest of the country have to listen and struggle during these lockdown periods. You told the world at the UN that everybody was wrong for securing vaccines for their own people. They are laughing at South Africa for telling the world that it's their fault. First off, that African countries could not pay. Second off, you are doing whatever you want, going against what you're telling the rest of the world, and then putting on launches and other stuff while the rest of the world or the rest of the country is struggling. You keep on talking that we must stand together as a country to get through COVID. Yet, the ANC is stepping outside the box, doing whatever they want, making it more difficult for the rest of South Africa to survive and to prosper in business, simply because the ANC is doing what they want. Guys, thank you for watching my videos. I do appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I find it just an outlet for me during a very difficult time and a very frustrating time in South Africa to talk about this stuff. That's why I'm doing these videos. That's why I'm trying to show the idiotic stuff going on in South Africa. But please do like and subscribe and share my videos. I really appreciate it. Cheers.